Hi everyone, Ashley here and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I am so excited to participate in another Lawn Fawn fans video hop, this time for winter. And if you are a follower of my channel, you'll know that this is my first time back in a while. I took a little bit of a break because I had a baby, my first baby, so it's a bit of an overwhelming experience, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to if you have babies or know people who have babies. But I'm so happy to be back and starting to get slowly back into making some videos, and what a more perfect one to do than this wonderful hop with so many other talented crafters. So without further ado, let's get into the crafting, and I'll talk a little bit more about the hop as we get into the video. So I'm starting by making this background, and I knew I wanted it to be bright red and pink for Valentine's Day. So I took out 3 of my favorite Distress Oxide inks. The first one is Lumberjack Plaid. This is a new color, and it's just this beautiful deep pink. It's almost like pinky red, sort of in the middle of pink and red, because it's so dark, but it's so pretty. Next is Abandoned Coral, which is that middle shade. And then at the end, I'm going to be using Saltwater Taffy as the lightest shade. And as you can see, I'm just using a blending brush to blend those onto the cardstock, sort of in a horizontal ombre. So with the darkest, that Lumberjack Plaid at the top, then moving into the Abandoned Coral, and then finally the Saltwater Taffy at the bottom. And I'm just going back and forth between the colors, using my blending brushes to really get them to blend seamlessly into each other, just going back and forth between the colors. So back and forth between the dark and the medium, and then the medium and the light, until I get a blend I'm happy with. So as you can see, the final result doesn't go all the way down to the bottom of the cardstock, because I knew I was going to be putting other things down there. It's going to be covered anyway, but you can see that really nice ombre blend of those 3 colors. Next, I'm going to be doing some hot foiling, and this is a new technique to me. I know it's been around forever and lots of other people have done it, but I'm finding it so fun. I got a hot foiling machine for Christmas, and a bunch of hot foils and other things to go with it, and I've just been pretty much adding hot foil to every card I've made since then, and wondering how I survived without it, to be honest, which obviously you don't need this for your cards. It's really just sort of a fun extra thing to have. This card would actually work perfectly fine without it, but it really does add a really nice sort of shine and shimmer to the background. It just makes it a little bit more special. So I took out my hot foil machine. This is a Spellbinder's Glimmer machine, and my hot foil plate. And today I'm using a Waffle Flower Scattered Stars plate. I've got Distress Oxide on the mind. So this is one of the only non-Lawn Fawn products that I'll be using today. So I put that hot foil plate down on the machine, I pressed the timer button, and I waited until it turned green. Now I can put my hot foil down face down onto that hot foil plate, then my blended panel on top of that also face down. Then I can take the shim and the spacer pad that are provided in sort of the kit that you get when you buy this machine. Then I can take that whole thing out and just run it through my die cutting machine, which I'm just going to do off camera. But if you're doing this at home, what you do is you just take all the other things out of your die cutting machine. So take the normal base out, all the other plates and everything, and just run this through completely on its own. When it's done, I can bring it back, and of course, the magical part where you peel the foil back and you see that beautiful design. So again, this is a waffle flower plate. It's just this sort of assortment of different sized stars just scattered throughout the background, which is really pretty over that sort of pink ombre sky. So I love hot foiling. You'll see it a lot in my cards. If you head over to my Instagram, I've been posting a lot of cards there with different types of hot foil. Okay, so I wanted to cut this down to go on the card front. So I'm using a Lawn Fawn Inside Out stitched rectangle die, the largest one that comes in the set, and that will cut this panel down to be slightly smaller than a card base. So if a card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I believe this cuts to 4 by 5 1/4, I believe, with that stitching detail around the edge. I also used that die to cut out a smaller rectangle, which I'm going to put at the bottom, and I wanted there to be sort of layers of stenciling on this. The first layer is going to look like grass. So I took my grassy stencil, just pinning it into place using some magnets on my Make Art magnetic station that I use a lot for stenciling. And then I'm taking some more Distress Oxides. Now I showed 2 in the video, but I really only ended up using 1, and that's this Twisted Citron. So that's just this really bright, sort of light citrusy green. I'm taking my blending brush and just blending that on, focusing most of the ink at the top where sort of the blades of grass are, so to speak, on the stencil, and then sort of blending it out towards the bottom, just allowing the ink to sort of lighten up, not really like adding more ink to the brush as I get closer to the bottom of the panel. And this just introduces a bit of a natural ombre with just one color. So the color is darkest towards the top and lightest towards the bottom. Next, I'm covering up that grass using the other side of the stencil, which is a cool part of this stencil is that it comes with the positive and negative side. So you can use one to stencil and the other side to cover up. And here I have two colors of Distress Oxide ink in brown. One is this lighter brown called pumice stone. And again, I'm just taking a blending brush and blending that on sort of up from where the blades of grass started into the second part of the panel. And now this is going to be sort of the look of a fence. So I wanted this light brown as sort of the base of the fence, and then I'll use the second brown Distress Oxide color, so that's a vintage photo, to make up sort of the slats, and that's where you'll sort of get the dynamic variety in that fence. Now, even so, with that pumice stone, you can see I still did focus a lot of ink towards the bottom and let it sort of drift off towards the top. Again, to just sort of introduce a little bit more depth and a little bit of a natural ombre just using that one color. Next, I took out my Simple Stripes Lawn Fawn stencil and put it so that the stripes are vertical. And then I'm taking my Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink and blending through that stencil. This is how you'll get what looks like the slats of the fence. I actually used the Vintage Photo for the bottom half of the slats and then blended out with more pumice stone towards the top, again, just to kind of give it a bit of an ombre. As a final touch, I'm putting that stripey stencil sideways and then using that Vintage Photo to blend on some darker brown ink towards the top to kind of just look like the top of the fence, and that sort of just finishes it off. So that is the whole bottom panel done. Next, I'm working on the sentiment. So I pulled out an ABC die set. This is Lawn Fawn's Finley's ABCs, and I'm cutting these letters out of vellum to spell the word love. And I'm just using a little mini die cutting machine for this. What I'll do next is, because the vellum, of course, is transparent, the letters don't pop super well. So what I did is I took a white Jelly Roll pen and just traced the outer edges to give it a bit of an outlined look. Now, of course, because it's just me tracing it by hand, it's not perfect, but that's okay. I was okay with a bit more of a sort of hand-drawn look for this. So as I go ahead and outline these letters, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the hop. If you haven't watched one of these types of videos before, basically what it is a bunch of us crafters come together, and we're all fans of Lawn Fawn, and we all make videos using Lawn Fawn products representing a certain season. So of course this one is for winter, and a lot of us are focusing on Valentine's Day for that. So what you can do as a viewer is you can go ahead and hop to the next video using the link in the description below this video, and then continue to hop along to see all the different videos and get tons of Lawn Fawn inspiration. And there will be a giveaway, so check out the details down in the description box below this video for more details on that. But it is such a fun hop, and the other ladies that are part of it and men that are part of it are all super talented, so I would definitely recommend checking them out for some cute Lawn Fawn inspiration. Okay, so I finished outlining all of those letters, and now I'm going to continue to finish the rest of the sentiment. And I wanted to create a custom sentiment for this. So I'm cutting out a vellum banner. I'm using a Lawn Fawn banner die, just a straight one. And then I'm going to take a Lawn Fawn ABC stamp set and spell out the words "is in the air." So that way the whole sentiment will say "love is in the air." And I'm just going to arrange those letters onto an acrylic block. And I like to do this just to make sure that all the letters are straight. And I find it faster and easier than stamping out each letter one at a time. Although it really depends. If you're just stamping out one word, sometimes it's easier to just go letter by letter. But if you're stamping out a full sort of sentence like this, I do sometimes like to just arrange the whole thing on the acrylic block, stamping it in one go. So I'm going to be heat embossing this in white embossing powder. So I just used my powder tool on that banner to make sure that there's no static left over. Then I'm stamping the sentiment in Versamark ink. This is a clear sticky ink that will hold on to that embossing powder. So I'm just stamping that from my acrylic block directly onto that vellum banner and just pressing down to make sure that all that ink gets transferred nicely. Once that's done, I can pick up that banner with my tweezers and spill the embossing powder onto it. I then like to sort of just flick the back and make sure that all the excess powder is off. And then you can see that the powder has stuck to those words. Off camera, I dried it with my heat gun, and as you can see, it melted the embossing powder and you get this beautiful white sentiment, "is in the air." So love is in the air. Now, I did go ahead off camera and stamp, color, and cut out a whole bunch of images from Lawn Fawn. I do a lot of coloring in a lot of my videos, so if you want to see that, definitely check out some other videos. But because we focused on so many other techniques for this one with the ink blending and the foiling and everything, I figured that I would just skip right ahead and now show you the assembly of the card. So I took that ink blended background panel with the hot foiled stars and stuck it right down onto a card base. And you can see there that that inside out stitched rectangle die from Lawn Fawn does leave a slight white border around it when you put it on a standard size card, which I think is really nice. I then glued the fence and grass panel that I had stenciled just on top. And the background of the scene is therefore complete. So now I can start to add some of the little images. I had stamped out and colored these little heart banners that come in a Lawn Fawn stamp set, and I wanted them to be hanging on the fence. So I hung one right in the middle, and then I hung two off to either side and just cut off the edges so it just looks like they're sort of going off the edge of the fence beyond the card. I'm just using some liquid glue for all of this so far, but I will introduce some foam squares to add some extra dimension to some of the images soon. So I have this little string of dogs that comes from the Simply Celebrate Critters stamp set by Lawn Fawn, and I'm just having them sort of sitting on top of the fence. Looks like they're peeking up from behind the fence, which is really cute. And I just stuck a little heart balloon behind them, so it looks like one of them is holding the balloon. I'm then going to arrange the sentiment. Now with vellum, because it is a little bit see-through, you have to be careful where you're putting the glue. So what I do is I always try to hide the glue behind the stamping. So for the banner, I just put little dots of glue behind each of the letters, and that way the vellum can stick down onto your card panel, but you don't see the glue. Now, of course, the word love was a little bit harder because there's not as much to cover up the glue, but I did try to put little dots behind where I had hand-drawn the border. A little bit did peep through in the end, but I tried just not to be super bothered by it. An alternative to this is that you could have die cut those words from vellum that you had previously placed on sort of a full sheet adhesive panel. That way when you die cut them, they would have already sort of been loaded onto like double-sided tape. That would be another way to adhere those types of letters, but I didn't think of that till it was too late. So I've gone ahead and arranged all the other images towards the bottom of the card. Again, I used a few foam squares for this, and then just put a couple more hearts up by the sentiment, and then the card is complete. So you can see when I turn the card in the light, you see how those beautiful stars catch the light with that gorgeous sparkly gold foil. And I just love those adorable critters towards the bottom celebrating Valentine's Day. Apologies for my cat Luna getting in the way. I think she's mad that I made a dog-themed card instead of a cat one. So thank you so much for watching this video. Again, please do hop along to the next one if you're interested. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!